And that was Cry Little Sister from the Lost Boys. Welcome to Mo Banshee's Lair. We had a little trouble making the phone connection, but we've got Mark Redfield on the line, and he's got a new book series coming out about vampires. And they do not glitter, according to Mark, which I'm over the moon about. We've got a great show for you tonight. After Mark is done telling us all about his newest ventures and talking over, his sites and everything, we've got Mark Redfield and John Aston in the cast of Amontillado. And it's a Edgar Allan Poe story, and you're really going to enjoy it. And with that, I'm going to say, Mark Redfield, welcome to my lair.
Oh, I'm always happy to be here. It's good to talk to you again.
Yeah. Vampires, they're hot, I guess, huh? This book, I love it.
They're always hot. They go through cycles of pop culture hotness, and the first novel that you've read is called CULT of the Nosferatu. It's a new series, and our hero is a fellow named Bertram Welles, who is a pretty smart private detective, but he's also a professional vampire hunter. CULT of the Nosferatu is the first in a series of adventures, and we introduce him and his world, which is Manhattan, New York. And, we'd like to keep the vampires mean and nasty. And the book is out now as an ebook. And in the summer, we have a short story collection coming out called Manhattan After Midnight, which are a bunch of very different short stories. Each one is a nice, some are action adventure, some are horror, straight up horror. But all from the casebook of Bertram Welles. And then late this fall, we have the second full-length novel, Resurrection and Revenge. And that vampire, Jacob, that villain, I think he'll be something to look forward to. He's particularly nasty. We could talk about him in a minute. But yeah, vampires are, they're popular. I mean, the zombie is the new vampire, but my writing partner, I co-write this series with a fellow that I've written some screenplays with, a fellow named Stuart Voytilla, who teaches screenwriting in San Diego State. Mm-hmm. And we just decided that we wanted to create our own gumshoe detective hero, and we wanted to make the vampires as disgusting and villainous and vile as we can. We didn't want to go the route of the romantic vampire. And it doesn't mean that some of these vampires that Bertram will cross in the future won't be tragic figures or broken figures, but some, like the villain in Cult of the Nosferatu. And I'm particularly fond of, we're working on Resurrection and Revenge now. We're editing and rewriting that novel for the fall release. Mm-hmm. And Jacob, our villain in that piece, is particularly nasty. He's a vampire that was discovered walled up in a New York prison for over 100 years, and that's a fascinating thing to work on. What intrigued me about that, what we're working on now, is basically a fish out of water story, and then by the time he comes out, he's quite horrifically insane and vile, and is a good adversary for Bertram, our hero. So we're having fun with the series.
Yeah, I'm telling you, and I'm not going to give it all away because we want you guys to buy it. I mean, you can get the Kindle. I'm looking right at it on Amazon. You can get it for $4.99, and it just opens up. And I told you this, Mark. It reads very much like the Thin Man, Dashiell Hammett type of books, the noir type of thing. It draws you in immediately. But there's Bertram Welles. He's the seasoned detective, and a Tammy Greevly, a police cadet from Denver, and their paths kind of end them up on the same trail, right?
Yeah, thank you for that, by the way, because that was very intentional. That was a choice that Stuart and I made about the series and about Bertram. We wanted to work in a style. I mean, we come out of the theater and we come out of film, and
Right.
we've written a number of screenplays together. And I think Stuart and I have only done one play together, but we wanted to have a certain kind of flavor to this. I am better suited at melodrama and action adventure. And so we really paid attention to a real punchy delivery and try to flavor it with that, so that it felt like exactly what you said: Dashiell Hammett, Raymond Chandler, Mickey
Right.
Spillane. We wanted that kind of a guy, and there's a little bit of background about the heroine of the first novel. In Cult of the Nosferatu, the client or the first heroine is a woman named Tammy Greevly, who has come to New York to essentially rescue her brother from what she believes to be a religious cult.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually will cross paths on her quest to find and rescue her brother and bring her brother back home to Denver. She'll cross paths with Bertram Welles, and they'll realize that they're working on something quite enormous.
Right.
And quite epic by the end of the novel. We wanted to open the series with a bang, if you will, and I think we do that with the ending. And there's a couple of things when working on deciding on, well, what is the character of Bertram to make him. I don't know where this idea came from, but it came very, very early with us. That Bertram is in many ways, and we have fun having other characters recognize this. Bertram is based physically and vocally a little bit on Jackie Gleason. And we just wanted, it was very early in the process, that physical characterization, that voice from Brooklyn. And if you imagine not the Jackie Gleason who was the brilliant comedian who played Ralph Crandon,
Mm-hmm.
but if you think of the brilliant Jackie Gleason who played Minnesota Fats in
Right.
Hustler with Paul Newman.
Yeah.
And so very early, I sketched the characters out, and I said, this is the kind of guy that this is, and, where are his foibles and faults? And we're planning in this, as long as people read them, if they catch people's fancy and we're making them, I think that his journey, his arc will go very far. He's already starting to maybe mimic some of my personal habits and horrors.
I said, boy, this guy reminds me a lot of Mark. But yeah, now that you mention it, Jackie Gleason has been in any of his serious roles. He was a great serious actor.
I mean, I'm more. I'm probably built more like Ed Norton, but I'm nowhere near physically like Jackie Gleason.
Right.
And although it's interesting, when we're about to record, the other thing about the series, the Vampire Hunters series, is that we're going to do a series of audio plays. I'm glad that you're going to play the Cask of Amontillado tonight because we're gearing up to record a 12-episode arc. And these are all standalone 30-minute adventures of Bertram Welles. And I'm going to voice Bertram. And so I've been playing with, just a slight sort of Brooklynese, hey, Pally, oh boy, kind of thing with Bertram a little bit. And so I'm still working him out a little bit. We'll see what he sounds like in a few months when we launch the audio series.
Well, you're a great actor. And you see...
bless you.
You are. I mean, this man is...
That kind of compliment puts pep in a man's step. Thank you very
much. Yes, you are a brilliant artist, characteristics artist. You are an author. You're an actor. I go over to Ireland, and, most people will say over there, oh, what part of America are you from? Over there, they sit there and they say, hey, love, where are you from? I says, New Jersey. And they look at me and say, no, you don't sound like you're from New Jersey, because they all want to hear that New Jersey kind of thing.
The Jersey accent, sure.
The Jersey. And they say, you sound like you're from Ireland, hon. And I sit there and say, no. Honest to God, it's just that my entire family's Irish, and that's who I hang out with, Irish people, But it's hard to get a dead on of a New York accent that's real. Some people take it over the top, and I look,
sure.
and I look and say, I've never heard anyone talk like that in my life. Where did that come from? So
absolutely right.
Yeah, I mean, I would be petrified to try to be an actress. It would not happen. Number one, and I've said this before, remember the movie Maxie with Glenn Close?
Sure,
remember when she was the ghost was supposed to show up to be Cleopatra, and it's the Glenn Close's regular character, and she's falling on the floor in front of Harry Hamilton and go, rah, rah. That would be me. That would be me, I forget it. I cannot. I've read Shakespeare numerous times. I cannot remember a line. I know characters. I can't remember lines. So God bless actors and actresses who can just become chameleons. I mean, I've seen a lot of...
The wonderful thing about radio drama is that you don't have to memorize anything. I mean, a couple of good rehearsals and you're reading, and good actors can make the reading sound like dialogue, make it not sound like they're reading from a page. The play that you'll run tonight, working with John Aston, was a lot of fun. That one was produced in front of a live audience in a very large, echoey church, Westminster Hall, which is on the property where Edgar Allan Poe is buried in Baltimore. So we didn't do that one in the studio. Back to the Vampire Hunters Incorporated radio series for a minute. The thing that I'm really, really interested in, and it's why the short story collection coming out this summer is called Manhattan After Midnight. I really wanted a lot of the flavors of New York, and so it is a melting pot of a cast. Some of these characters are already introduced in Cult of the Nosferatu. Bertram has a Jamaican driver named Delilah, who is a character that really tickles me. It's a character that I like writing. We've cast an actor named Belle Burr to play her in the series.
Oh, that's cool.
And so there's a supporting cast, and then there are new villains and this kind of thing. So, in casting the voices for the upcoming audio series, Vampire Hunters Incorporated, I just, I want the world. New York is a melting pot. But I also want those threads of all of those, there's a very distinctive Brooklyn sound and people from all over the world and all nationalities. So I think we're going to have a lot of fun with the radio series as well.
Yeah, the New York and the area of New Jersey, northern New Jersey, that's the melting pot. That's where we stepped off Ellis Island, and
Absolutely.
even today, that's where people come into this country. My friend Lorraine is from Jamaica, and she'll be calling her son, whose name is Daniel, and she'll be going, Danielle, have you seen Danielle? And when the kids were little, I'd sit there going, and Danny would come to me and say, Gail, you didn't see me. And she'd say, Gail, have you seen Danielle? And I kind of laugh because we're all in this together over here. It's this huge melting pot, and we all give to each other and take away from each other, and it's a great place to have. The book is in the present, right?
Oh, the everything but Bertram is modern day. And we felt that the story that we picked to launch the series with, New York is a character, and is a part of the fabric of the series, and that's why those early scenes, and Stuart Voytilla brought a lot of this to it. They take place at Port Authority, which for a lot of people, that's how they enter New York. If they don't drive through the tunnel, or they don't, and I'm talking about other Americans, obviously, who are traveling, or they don't fly in, or they don't take the train in to the station, they'll come in through Port Authority. And so early scenes there when Tammy's come in from Denver and basically the subway being a major setting for those last chapters. And just the flavors and the sounds of New York were very important. And obviously, you're going to get a nice travelogue in the collection of short stories called Manhattan After Midnight. But, we thought that it's just very, very New York, and it's fun playing in that. And it gives us, like, endless supply of evil vampires. You're not painted into a corner by one kind of mythology. New York,
but there's so much to draw from. There's so much to draw.
To bring in for flavor and for settings and characterization. It's a lot of fun. So the whole thing started, by the way, years ago. Stuart and I had written a movie screenplay called Vampire Hunters Incorporated, and it was an adventure. Straight up, Bertram was in it. But Bertram had a partner. And when we started collaborating and we created that screenplay, it was basically this sort of Holmes and Watson kind of thing. And it wasn't set in New York. And as a matter of fact, the story of that screenplay, it may be actually our third full-length novel in 2017 in the future, but because it's a very, very good story. But as we've progressed over the years with it, and it's had a couple of false starts, we, at one point, were very close to having New Line Cinema look at the idea as a television series. At one point, we were very close to Tor Books publishing it. And in launching it now with Cult of the Nosferatu, we basically took the partner away. And this is kind of a secret that's only interesting to maybe Stuart and myself, or fans of the book, and hopefully there will be fans of Bertram Welles.
Oh, yeah.
But Tammy Greevly was originally this partner sidekick character. In throwing that idea completely out, it changed the character, and then we turned it into a woman and called her Tammy. And we like Bertram being a loner, even though he's got an organization, a series of operatives that work under him. In some ways, and I don't want to give too much away, but he actually does work for a larger organization called Van Helsing International.
Right.
And we're creating another series is set in the past, in London. It's set in 1905, and it stars the characters from Dracula. It stars Jonathan and Mina Harker as vampire hunters in London. They also work for Van Helsing International. So
you are going to jump around in time and bring like a history into it.
Basically, there are two series. The Harker series will start later this year, and they're sharing a universe, but 100 or more years apart. Really.
Ah, very cool.
And so there will be, because the villains are vampires, there's the chance that they get to share some villains, but they of course will never meet.
Right.
But they are just operatives of this larger organization that was set up after the events of Dracula. So Jonathan is a lawyer by day, and Mina is a school teacher by day, and they hunt vampires at night while they try to raise their son Quincy. And,
wow.
The first story coming in, it'll be later this year. We don't have a date set for it. Is Harker in the Shadow of Dracula. And then in 2017, the next Harker tale will be Harker and the Devil's Children. And all I can tell you about that is that the guest star is a grown-up Timothy Cratchit from a popular Dickens novel. But that's all I'll say about that. And we're having a lot of fun with that. And the audio series of Harker, I'll be playing Jonathan Harker, and my friend Caroline Munro, who did The Black Cat with me.
Right.
And we just finished Sinbad and the Pirate Princess, which will be out this spring on CD and iTunes. She'll be playing Mina Harker. So Vampire Hunters Incorporated hopefully will continue to grow. I'm getting, Stuart and I are getting some wonderful feedback and I think we're building a nice little fan base and who are liking Bertram, and hopefully we can keep growing that and we can keep delivering some fun stories.
Yeah, these characters immediately draw you in. I love the way it starts. It's Christmas holiday. Everybody's off. He's on a train. He's dealing with, and I can relate to this. I'm really old, and I got to tell you, today, Facebook, I don't know what happened to my Facebook, but it had me as being married in 1909.
I saw that. There was also that and something about your birthday. But
yeah, and my birthday is May 1st, so I had to contact them.
Mine's May 17th, so
happy
birthday to
perfect. Perfect. We're the same kind of people. We love the same kind of things. You're incredibly artistic, and I'm not. So we're perfect. I'm telling you, my art teacher told me, please don't even paint a barn. And I've never done that. I've never even tried. I look at the wall and go, yeah, hire somebody. Actually, yeah. But on the train, the technology, and he's, you've got the cell phone and you've got this and you've got that. And he's going through his things, and there's a woman on the train, and he pulls a green dress out of the thing, and you think of yourself in that position looking at some guy who's, in his mid-50s pulling out this green dress, and you're wondering, okay, what's this guy's story? It immediately draws you in to make you want to know what the guy's story is. I mean, like they say, that band that sings the Big Bang, they have the other one, if I had $1 million, don't buy a green dress. That's cruel. So you see some big burly guy kind of like pulling out a green dress out of his thing. You got to actually ask yourself, okay, I want to know a lot more about this guy because he's really interesting.
Well, we're kind of self-conscious there in that chapter in introducing Bertram in some ways because, we know that we're creating the term you used, a gumshoe, and there are familiar tropes, there are familiar outlines about a character like this, and that these sorts of detectives in these stories, they will often wear disguises. They'll do this, and so we knew that we had to touch on some things and then play with them, and then subvert them or run with them like mad. Just say that there's some fun in doing this. It's been done before, but hell, we're just going to go for broke and have some fun with this. And he's fighting vampires in the end anyway, so it's okay. And we wanted to not have the full team. The supporting cast was developed as we developed the stories for the radio plays in the last several months. And so instead of bringing them into the novel, and the novel very busy with sub-agents and, the people that he works with, there's a whole group of characters that we've created. His secretary, Becky, who works in the office, he's got Delilah is the one supporting character that we brought fully into the novel, and the medical examiner, Franklin. It was important to bring him in. We'll see him again. Those are great, fun characters to have some fun with. And, he needs people to talk to. And since we lost his partner, see, that's the great thing that, a lot of writers that have detectives and that have partners, have sidekicks, have Dr. Watson.
Right.
Well, that gives them somebody to talk to.
Yeah.
And when you make your detective alone,
if he's talking to himself, there's something wrong.
They're talking to themselves. And we did, in the novels, in the prose, we didn't want them to be written in the first person.
Right.
The way Chandler and Dashiell Hammett would talk, Nick Charles,
right,
in the first person. But the radio plays, however, will be narrated by Bertram. They will be in the first person to get some narration to help us move through the stories quickly, because they're, we're painting pictures with words, and we don't have any way to do it except. So that's going to be the major difference. And that's been a fun exercise, a fun writing exercise as well, because they're so massively different storytelling mediums, but we're just having a blast with it. I'm editing a big 90-minute thing called Sinbad and the Pirate Princess right now. And that stars Caroline Munro, who was in the Ray Harryhausen film, The Golden Voyage of Sinbad. She was the heroine in that.
Right.
So she's our pirate princess, and our villain is Martine Beswick. Caroline and Martine are great, great friends. They both have the distinction of being Bond girls, and they've been friends of mine for years. And Martine has fought and fought and fought. I don't want to act anymore. I'm retired. And then Caroline and I twisted her arm to play the villain. She got the script. She fell in love. She can't wait to do more. So it's a lot of fun. I get to play Sinbad. So we all get to play young, virile characters and do a lot of swashbuckling. And it's a great, great story. But we're editing that one now, so that should be out in spring. So, in addition to the other things, I'm still doing, the audio plays.
Mm-hmm. Okay, talking about character development. I'm like you. A vampire is a predator, like my husband Teddy. And yes, that came out on Facebook today too. Yes, he's 21 years older than me, and yes, he was called a pedophile and a cradle robber. I chased him. Were you trying to be very careful? I don't know. Have you even seen and I don't know the name of it. I saw the trailers where they call them glitter or something, the vampires.
Oh, you're talking about the Twilight series.
Twilight, right. Okay.
The unfans of Twilight like to make fun of the glittery vampires and the Twilight series, yes. No, our vampires don't glitter, they're mean.
Yeah, so you took particular care with that to make sure that you didn't align them.
They're great villains, and there's an endless variety of things that you can do with a vampire.
Right.
We can make up our own rules as we go. We can bend them and shape them, and we can have ones that walk in the daylight. We can have ones that play by the rules. We can shatter the rules, and we're learning all over again.
Yeah, that drives me nuts with people.
Jacob, right now I'm working on the character of Jacob for Resurrection and Revenge, which will be the second full-length Bertram Welles adventure, and it'll be out late this fall. And Jacob is an interesting character to write because when he is freed from his prison, and he's been alone for 100 years in the dark, eating rats. Mm-hmm. And this, and he's been a vampire all this time.
Right.
And this would drive any creature mad. And so to create a character that is just so purely evil, and once he is able to get out, and once he is able to start adjusting to and this is another fun thing to write about this creature, Jacob, is that, he's a fish out of water. The world has changed in over 100 years, technologically and everything else. Mm-hmm. And as he regains his strength, as he gets his bearings, as he learns how to operate into the world in the early chapters, it's all for one purpose, and that's to revenge his incarceration. Now, this is an age-old story. There's 1,000 Westerns that are based on this story. When I get out of jail, I'm going to shoot the guy who put me there.
Right.
But it's what you do with the characters, and we're having fun with that. Now, the villains, the vampires in Cult of the Nosferatu, the novel that's out now, Stuart and I had a lot of talks about that, and I was interested when we started writing this. We were both a little intrigued by the idea of cults, whether it be Scientology or, the famous thing when we were in the Jim Jones, where the people who might follow a Charles Manson. What is that about? What is the charisma of the leader about? That's what, and I'm not going to give too many spoilers away. It's kind of obvious what's happening quickly, but that's what created the twins in Cult of the Nosferatu, and this church that was doing some good. And then, this is a problem that doesn't go away in any city, in any town, the problem of the homeless. Mm-hmm. And that is from the very beginning, that even that first scene with Bertram on the train when he meets the woman Jessica, which is kind of an ongoing running gag with Bertram, is that he works so hard he doesn't quite have a love life. He's not James Bond.
Yeah, I can relate.
But but even in that first scene, what is catching Bertram's eye are a series of murders, and they are mostly homeless people.
Right.
So even there, the seeds have begun, being planted there for the reader, where this is all going to our climax in the end. And New York City, one of the biggest cities, has an enormous homeless problem. Always trying to make things work and fix it. All of our cities have this problem, and it's something that we've got to do something about. Anyway, all of these elements came together, and our villains feeding and using the homeless for
because they're invisible. The homeless, most people don't even notice them anymore because
pretty much.
They're so prevalent that nobody even pays attention.
Sort of the fabric, even though Cult of the Nosferatu and the whole vampire, it's pulp fiction.
Yeah,
it's all for entertainment. I mean, these are serious themes that I think are underlying it. And these are the things that attract Stuart and I, and then, in weaving our villains. And so it goes back to answering your question or your comment that, we're using the mythology of the vampire for a lot of different masks, a lot of different kinds of villains, and it's inexhaustible. We're not going to run out of very different bad guys, whether it's a short story, a radio play, or one of the novels.
Yeah, let me interrupt. Yet in there is nobility, because there's the one scene where there's a battle, and the one says, "You fought bravely, you were a good warrior. I'm going to end this fast for you." So there is a bit of nobility into it.
Well, it is, but it's also, in that scene what you're talking about there.
I don't want to give it away. That's the problem.
Well, it's hard, because people haven't read it. It's also false. I mean,
right.
She's, in this case, it's a potential, it's a very young boy that she is
about to end.
Buttering up, is basically soft soaping. She's basically saying these things to strengthen him, to give him a kind of strength to use him. And that's what she's ended up doing, our villainess in this piece. But it's difficult to get into it. It's not...
Right.
None of our listeners have read the novel yet, so they don't know what
You've got to buy it. It's only $4.99 on Amazon. You've got to buy it, people, because they need to talk about this. Teddy... I talk to Teddy every day, and that's okay because he never remembers it. So, he says, "Oh, I got to read that," But what you were saying about there are no rules, and I have a quick little story. When my kiddies were little, Scooby-Doo was all the rage, and I go into the parlor. And this will make sense, gentle listeners. I go into the parlor, and they're at fisticuffs with each other, and they're fighting. And I got to get between, Christine and Matthew. And I says, "What the, and they're arguing because Scooby-Doo is using his paws to pull himself up a rope, and they're saying, one's saying, 'Mommy, he can't do that. He's a dog.' And the other's saying, 'But he's Scooby-Doo. He can do that.' And I says, 'Has it occurred to either one of you that the feckin' dog talks? It's a make-up. The dog talks. He can do anything they want him to do. He's a cartoon.'"
But to argue is the sign of true fandom. And that's a good thing. If there's that much investment to argue over.
Oh, it was a knockdown, drag out. We had a Donnybrook in the parlor. So when it comes to vampires, people will say, "Well, that's not right because, he could, you could see his breath, or he can see the reflection." These are all things that have been added by different vampire stories.
Oh, absolutely. Look, the godfather of the vampire tale, the one that we all go back to, is, of course, Bram Stoker and his novel Dracula.
Right.
And, whether it's Carmilla before that and Varney the vampire before that.
Right.
But Dracula is the one that set up a certain kind of rule book that a lot of authors, and certainly where the majority of the vast public gets their information or what they think they know about the mythology of the vampires from the movies.
Mm-hmm.
And, the thing is that it was just a choice. And, as we create our villains in this series, it can go a lot of different ways. Every one of these characters is going to be different. Every bad guy is going to be different. But the whole idea of a romantic Dracula, of a Dracula of lost love, really comes out of Dark Shadows and Barnabas Collins. And then Dan Curtis produced a television adaptation of Dracula with Jack Palance.
Right.
And that is the one that really does it. It's not Christopher Lee's Dracula. It's not that. And then by the mid-1970s, with Frank Langella's Dracula on Broadway, which was nothing but a complete Broadway matinee heartthrob.
Right. He could have bit me and I would have been happy.
And absolutely. So now, we've really established by then with John Badham's movie using Frank Langella that it's a very much thing about lost love. By the time Coppola gets to his version called Bram Stoker's Dracula, his film, it is obviously a love story. And he's taking those ideas that Dan Curtis used in Dark Shadows.
Yeah, because the original book isn't quite like that.
The reincarnated lost love thing. So that's all an invention of the movies and a little bit of the theater, a little bit of the play that Lugosi was in, but the Universal. But even there, he's an outsider and very much a creature of horror. Although he's a handsome wearing opera clothes. So it's a very 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 specific thing that this. The metaphors of romance, of sex, of everything that Myers used in the Twilight series,
right?
Taking all of those metaphors, and then of course they're really pushed to the hilt. Because the movies are very good adaptations of her novels. They're very true to what she wrote, and the fans, the young audiences and the teens, ate it up and spit it out, and now they're off to the next thing. And we've obviously been through the Hunger Games, and there'll be something next and something next. But so it's a very, very different thing. So it was just a choice to say, let's not do the romantic vampire. That's another way of saying our vampires don't live. Let's just not do the romantic vampire. And let's not forget, by the way, that the other big voice in the room who created the romantic vampire was, of course, Anne Rice with the Lestat series. And all of those characters that run in and out of the Lestat story, run the gamut. But it's a great romantic arc through what Anne Rice is doing. So it's just taking them back to something nasty, like Richard Matheson's I Am Legend.
Right.
And so they are very closely related to our very popular zombie right now, whether it's The Walking Dead or any of the low-budget independent zombie films. I mean, zombies are they're very close to the cinematic and literary vampire as well. So they're all sort of in the same stew.
Right. I want to bring up the site for this is www.vampirehuntersinc.com.
Correct. VampireHuntersInc.com. And we'll be posting all kinds of news and links there to things that we're doing with the Vampire Hunters series.
Yeah.
Whether that's Bertram Welles or whether it's the Harker series.
Yeah, you have everything there. The Harker series. You have a lot there. I'm going to ask you, are you able to talk at all about on Poe Forevermore? You have the Karloff, Karloff and Actor's Life. Are you able to talk at all about that?
Yeah, that's still at the scripting stage, and I have some actors in mind for that. I won't spoil it now because I haven't done it in a while. I do a very good Karloff, and I'll be playing Boris Karloff. It's an idea that I had years ago, and I approached Sarah Karloff about it, and it's a biography that stays closely closer to his career. It is an actor's life.
Right.
There's not a lot of, and this is not a complaint. I am a fan of the actor Boris Karloff.
Yeah, who isn't?
There's not a lot of drama in his life.
He was a very private man. Very private.
A very private man, but there's still stories to be told.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike another popular figure, Bela Lugosi,
mm-hmm.
who, whether it was the war in Hungary, there's a whole movie in Lugosi's first arrival in America and his difficulty with the language, and then within a couple of years, he's playing Dracula on Broadway. There's a story right there, and it ends with opening night. That could be a fascinating tale. So even a man who had a very gentle, he was known to be a gentle gentleman, Boris Karloff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So even a man with so little fireworks and drama in his own life, there's so much to tell. And we're at the scripting stage, and what I'm having an enormous fun time doing is putting Hollywood in it. Once we get him to Hollywood, and the theater stuff has been fine. I've got a novel coming out in a couple of months called The Cheney Murder Case, and it'll be advertised on all of the websites. You'll be able to find it, and it's about Lon Chaney. It's a murder mystery where the main character is Lon Chaney, who's our detective, and by accident. He's not
okay.
Don't hope that he becomes some two-fisted, Nick Charles or something like that. But,
right.
Or Mickey Spillane, or he's not Mike Hammer.
mm-hmm.
It was fascinating working on that novel and imagining, because I am an actor, what an actor's daily life is in 1917 Hollywood. So for me to do that with all of the information and weave Hollywood and famous people around him, the voice casting of this, I have some people that I've talked to. There are going to be some people doing some voice imitations of famous Hollywood people, because you can't avoid it. His career spans, when you're talking about talkies, but even before that, casting people that we don't know what they sound like. But there are a lot of people that he crosses paths with, whether he worked with them or not.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that's really exciting me right now at the planning stages of Karloff and actors' lives is the Hollywood fabric and the Hollywood sound and all of those actors. And so I'm casting very slowly. I don't have a release date for that set, and if there is one, it was a cheeky mistake. It should be taken down if there's any release date attached to any notice of it. It will be out this year, but we're at the scripting and planning stages right now, and only a handful of people have been cast. So it's his life in 90 minutes, which is not enough time.
No, it's not. He's card number 9 in the Screen Actors Guild. That story alone of how the Screen Actors Guild, how they had to hide their cars, how they had to use payphones so that the big companies didn't find out they were trying to form a Screen Actors Guild. That in itself is a movie.
Well, absolutely. Unionization in Hollywood was very, very dangerous, and they took great, great risks. And, Cagney got involved relatively early, but the very, very first ones who met clandestinely, Morgan and Karloff and the
Gleason.
The first, oh, absolutely. So the first 10 or 11 people grew very quickly. And, it took several years from the formation of SAG, the Screen Actors Guild, to become what it was. It took a few years of doing that. And unfortunately, there is this moment, as hard as Karloff worked early to set it up, when those first, and he was an early card number. He was in England working on the Ghoul when things actually coalesced. And then he came back and he was a staunch union man ever since.
Mm-hmm.
That's it's unlike my autobiography, which is also coming out this year. Now that is 20 half-hour chapters. That's 10 hours long. That will also be a CD set, and you can get that on iTunes. And it's called Alone: The Life of Poe. And that's I really feel like I know Edgar Allan Poe, having been through. I was writing those scripts for over 5 years, and we're putting finishing touches on recordings now. Some entire shows have to be sold. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, so it's not ready for release yet, but it will be released this year. That's a case of a man who lived half of what Karloff did, and yet I'm telling that story in 10 hours. 20 half-hour episodes.
Right.
And each one is very rich, very full. We spend several episodes in his childhood, a couple in his teenage years, his 20s, his 30s, and then Edgar Allan Poe, dies at the age of 40. With Karloff, in a 90-minute audio biography, in really keeping it in an act, his career as an actor, and not getting into too many behind the scenes with his wives and this and that and the other. And we don't invent things.
Right.
It's also, Karloff, I can tell you this much too. Karloff is told a little bit in the first person. It is narrated by Karloff a little bit, as if he were able to put this recording down. And then it goes off into fully dramatized scenes with people. Unlike Poe, which is purely objective. There is no Poe does not narrate. Poe is a character. So the biographies of the scripts are handled very, very different.
Okay, let me just say it again. Mark Redfield's production of Alone: The Life of Poe. That's what you're talking about with this series, right?
Right. That's the long audio play series that will be out on iTunes and CD. And then the shorter one, probably in the fall, I would think it will be ready. Will probably be recorded and edited sometime in the summertime. There are actors in Los Angeles, and I would like to get in on this. So I would probably record some scenes in studios there. I'd like to get some of my friends who are in the so-called horror business involved in this because of their love of Karloff and that kind of thing. So Karloff, An Actor's Life, which is, also destined for iTunes and CD, probably the fall. It'll probably be a great thing, out in time for Christmas or something. I don't know.
And you have Poe Forevermore, magazine, radio. When do you sleep?
Well, I idle hands. I work all the time, and I've always been a producer. When I was when I was 17 and 18, and I had started college early, and I was in my theater department at Towson University. A group of us got together, and I produced a Romeo and Juliet to give us work, and it was huge, a huge show. I've always been one to create my own work, and I can't stop. And I love to travel. I love to socialize with people. I'm not a hermit. I don't, but I also work all the time. I'm always typing. I'm always writing. I'm always sketching. I'm always using a tape recorder.
I'm always trying to research. You know what I mean?
And research, I think, this is purely personal. I mean, anybody who has directed or designed anything, or certainly writers, they will all tell you that the research is the most exciting part. I mean, I just love learning things. I love traveling places, and I wish I could travel more for the research that I'm doing on the Vampire Hunters books. I love New York City, I wish I could travel more, but, and then there are things that are, pure fantasy.
Right.
And, I've read, the Arabian Tales, 1001 Nights, and, the Sinbad stories there, and I love the Ray Harryhausen films, and, so writing the script for Sinbad and the Pirate Princess, that's pure imagination. That's just pure. Can we do an audio version of a Ray Harryhausen film? Which, by the way, I want to mention that when we make Sinbad and the Pirate Princess available, and I sound like a broken record, but when we make that available,
that's fine.
When that comes out, probably $1 of each sale will go to the Harryhausen Foundation. Caroline is one of the board. Caroline Monroe is on the board, and what I would like to do is feed some of the profits into the board, because they are growing. right now about the preservation of his drawings and artifacts and the models. But to keep the art of stop motion animation alive, I had mentioned this to Caroline that, I would like to give a portion of what we make to the Ray Harryhausen Foundation, so that they can grow and, keep the art alive by keeping the word of his work alive. So, but it is, the research is just so exciting. I love history. I mean, I read fiction, but I read mostly nonfiction, and whether they be biographies or they be, history or
that's me. I'm a history. I like a good story, but if you hold up ancient history book in front of me, my eyes go right over to the ancient history. That's, I love it, and I just feel like if I'm not trying to learn something, I'm wasting my time being here. And
I think we should all. I think we should fill every moment with. We should just fill every moment.
I mean, life is intrusive. I mean, it's a pain in the can. It gets in the way of things you want to do. So you have to build your life around what needs to be done, and that kind of thing. So there's days like, you have to take care of the family you have to focus on. But there are so many downtimes that people sit and stare at ridiculous stuff. And they watch that, and I think, don't you have anything you would rather be doing than watching that crap?
When you have to go out and make the donuts, when you have to take care of your family, when you have to do these things, it's so much better to be able to do those things because it's so much richer because you have also fed your soul and fed your imagination and fed your mind, and it really opens your heart to things. And then when you're on that daily mission of those things that must be done with your family, the things that seem so mundane, you can do it with an open and a full heart. I think people are better people when they read and when they experience art. They travel, and it's proven. And you and I were we're preaching to the choir. The people listening to you know that. That the more they open their minds, the more their hearts will fill.
Yeah, and I can't say enough about it. People think, well, history, everything we are at this point in time is because of history. You can't change history. You can learn from it, and I've taught that to my kids and my family, even my granddaughter, and now with the new granddaughter, my son got married, excuse me, and Beth is in third grade, and I'm introducing her to black and white films and the old stuff, and it's opening up a whole new world for her because she came from the Disney, all the Disney movies, the frozen princesses fighting each other and stuff. And when you bring them back in time and say, watch this is really great. We watched Creature of the Black Lagoon and she started crying because he got killed at the end.
It's funny. Did we talk about Creature from the Black Lagoon ever? This is a true story.
Maybe.
I've introduced films to my nieces and nephews. And years ago, when my nephew Noah was around 8 or 9, I thought, now's the time to throw some stuff at him that he won't get antsy with because maybe they're slow moving and parts. But the Creature from the Black Lagoon moves pretty quickly.
Yeah.
The 50s sci-fi stuff moves pretty fast. And he loved it. By the way, like later that year after he saw it, I got Julie Adams to sign an autograph picture of her and the creature. And I gave it to him, and he still has it on his bureau in his dresser. He fell in love with the thing, and he got it as a little kid. Exactly what you just said. He exactly didn't cry, but he felt. He got hit, boom, right in the feels. He got it immediately with that picture. I think that's why that's still people of our generation and other folks. think that's still why Creature from the Black Lagoon is a favorite.
I've always cried for the monsters. I cried when they killed Godzilla in the Raymond Burr. I'm always the one, leave it alone. Leave it alone. You brought it here, now leave it alone. You've done enough damage, Right. I had last year my granddaughter and a bunch of her friends. Now we're talking about 19-year-old kids and stuff. And I brought out Night of the Living Dead, the original one. And most of those kids had never seen it. And at the end of it, they were like, oh, that's so wrong. That's so wrong. Because this guy fought. Yeah. But it was so rewarding because it was a movie that this guy fought and kept them and tried to keep everybody alive during a time when there was racial unrest and that kind of thing and the growing pains. And they were shocked that he was killed at the end, And right. I loved
and
that.
That still works today.
Yeah.
There's still, and here's a nice old quote that I like a lot that's popped up recently, and that is, there are no old movies if you haven't seen it.
Right. Yeah.
So to my nephew, to your, it's new. Black and white doesn't mean that it's new to you.
Yeah.
And it can still work.
Mm-hmm.
Marx Brothers can still make them laugh. Laurel and Hardy can still make them laugh.
Yeah.
There are things that are timeless, and there are things that are date, but still work.
Yeah.
They pick up a candlestick phone. I think my 5-year-old nephew still understands the concept that it's a kind of phone.
Yeah.
So, and that's just minutia. That's just nitpicking on things. But, I think that's wonderful that you do that. And, oddly, as much as we are exposed to with all kinds of films at any time, Netflix and all of this, somehow we were exposed to it in the mix of things when we had less choices.
Right.
Years ago. Now it's so specialized that, kids, somehow have missed Laurel and Hardy short films or Warner Brothers early 30s and 40s cartoons and things that are just rich entertainment that, we're all part of the mix that I think made us the people that we are, and pretty cool with that.
I said that. Somebody gave me a little bit. Yeah, I guess I hit the big times when you get somebody who's stalking you saying, "Oh, she's an old lady who likes to talk and has cats." And I said, "You wish you were as cool as me, kid." Really, I've seen and done things that you're never going to see and do. And I left it at that. I think it's up to us to keep this all alive and reintroduce the bad guys. And vampires are not good guys, I like them being bad guys.
And that's exactly it. I mean, we took the old Raymond Chandler, Mike Hammer world of the private detective. We paint a kind of picture of New York that is a New York that doesn't exist. It's a mixed hour in New York, which is the landscape and the backdrop of all of these stories for vampires. Is a New York that doesn't exist anymore because New York is always changing.
Right.
So this New York is somewhat of the New York that we might remember had we lived and been there in the 70s and 80s. The really dark and dank and dangerous New York. New York, let's face it, Times Square still smells like urine on a hot summer day.
Yeah. All you need to do is take an elevator.
But,
yeah.
This is modern time. This is a New York that is always improving, always growing, and I don't dislike. It's fine the Disneyfication of, and the fact that they renovated and what they're doing with Broadway shows, and so that's the tourist, that's the center of it. And everything else, they will always have their struggles, whether it's what they're doing about the horses and the carriages.
Oh God.
Which I'm basically for keeping. the horses and the carriages, because the thing that people who are against the horses and carriages don't understand, they're generally not horse people. And
Right.
if you know horses, if you've ridden horses, you know that horses are work animals.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to. Oh, let's not go there. Let's not go there. We're having.
Yeah, I know exactly
anyway,
what you're
look,
saying.
they
are.
The rents. People can't live in Manhattan. The rents are too high.
Yeah.
There's this, that, and the other. But for all of the bad, there's 10 goods. And so we've created kind of this hybrid, which reminds people who don't know New York, they might know films like The French Connection or The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, the original, not the remake.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of flavor of New York.
Right.
That's sort of the background there. So, and so bashing all of this stuff up and then saying our vampires are going to be cut from the cloth of the mythology of vampire and everything that's come before. And what can we do to make this a little different, tweak this, put it in a blender and it kind of creates a kind of fresh thing. And, like I said, we're having a blast creating these stories, and we hope people, fall in love with the character of Bertram as he grows and changes, and they get to know him, and they like his adventures.
Yeah, he's an average Joe. He's not He's not Sherlock Holmes. He's not. No, and I'm trying to think of an actor that like Keanu Reeves or somebody that's a pretty boy. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
What you're trying to say. I mean, that's one of the reasons why
he's real.
He's formed in my head as Jackie Gleason. I mean, I'm not kidding.
Yeah, he's you could see him as a real person and not some people will read something and right away it's Johnny Depp or it's an actor who's very, very gorgeous, or something like that. He's every man. He's just a regular guy,
Who women do find attractive, though.
Yeah. There's something to be said about a guy that you can look at and say, I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure he's not gay. See, that was when I met Teddy. I was 26. And he was 47, and I only had two concerns. Are you gay and are your parents dead? And he says, no, I'm not gay, and my parents are dead. I says, I'm marrying you. So that's how we got to where we are today, I mean, for me, a gay guy wouldn't work,
Not bad since, 1909 is it? Has it been?
Yeah, 1909, baby. Talk about a cradle robber. God. He wasn't even born yet. Yeah, I'm bad. And then when you try to get help from Facebook, they say, well, if you have misinformation, we're going to have to cancel. I didn't do anything. I just woke up this morning and found out I was married in 1909 and it's my birthday. But that's Facebook. Your site, Poe Forevermore, is exactly that, www.poeforevermore.com. I'd like to talk a little bit about, because we are going to do the Cask of Amontillado. How did you get fixated on Poe?
Fixated on Poe? Well, I kind of stumbled into it accidentally. I had written, I'll give you the short form of this, because I'm not sure what to do with the property, what to do with the script. Years and years ago, I was developing, because nobody had done it at the time when I started, a feature-length film adaptation of Poe's The Telltale Heart. Mm-hmm. And I have a pretty good idea of what to do with it in my adaptation. I like our script a lot. It went through many, many changes, and I almost had a chance to produce it a couple of times. And the final time, my adaptation is set in the very last days. The Civil War is over. Lincoln has been assassinated. They're hunting John Wilkes Booth. And in that area, there is a boarding house, and it just so happens that a serial killer shows up. And the boarding house is run by an old German woman and her invalid husband, and he is essentially Poe's nameless man, old man with the eye. Bedridden upstairs. And we have this series of characters that all converge on this boarding house during this time where there's basically martial law declared. right in those ending days of the Civil War. So, and I had developed the film twice, and when I thought I was going to finally produce the film, I had Ingrid Pitt involved, a British actress, and I had Robert Quarry, an American actor who was very famous for, coincidentally, a series of films with a character that he played called Count Yorga. And Bob and I had become friends. We had talked about doing a play together. I never sang for my father. Ingrid was very hungry to work. And unfortunately, over the time it took to raise the money, they both passed away. My investor had a stroke in the middle of all of that. And very sad, and I put the script away and thought I'd never do it. Now, while trying to do that, I became intrigued by Poe the man. Mm-hmm. Again, trying to pick a story that Roger Corman didn't do in the 1960s, and Telltale Heart was what we set upon. And as I researched the stories, as I looked at the poetry, the man continued to fascinate me. And so two things came out of it. I then made a very strange little film that's out there called The Death of Poe.
And I love it.
Oh, thank you. It's a poor man's David Lynch film. It's very surreal. And it's about Poe's last days, what may or may not have happened to him.
Right.
And what came out of that, I think what I take away from the finished film after it was finished was it's about the artist's struggle. It's about the artist's struggle to continue. How difficult it is for an artist to get financed, to get listened to
My favorite,
be recognized.
I'm going to interrupt you. My favorite scene in that is when he's pitching it and they tell him no, and he goes to leave and he forgets his hat and walks back and gets his hat and walks back out. I don't know what it is about that scene. It's so sad, but it's almost comical because it's like, okay, you let me waste all this time pitching this to you and then said no. Do you know what I mean?
That really is, and I'm glad you find it funny. I mean, that really is what happened.
Yeah.
A lot. I mean, I've had to deal with private investors for a number of films that I've produced, and it's a miserable way to spend their money.
Yeah. It's heartbreaking, but it's almost like, oh, shoot, I forgot my hat. It isn't bad enough I'm walking out, but now I got to go back and get my hat and then walk back out again.
There's an enormous amount of humility and humiliation involved.
Yes.
So that came out, and then I started to get connected with the Poe underworld. And Poe, by that I mean there's an undeclared, unofficial networking of Poe gatekeepers out there. It's very interesting, and I won't get nastier than that. But, kind of a specialized thing, and they have their toes in education, and they have their toes in historic monuments, and, they're very protective of their own territories. And, most of it is in good cheer. Most everybody in these Poe cities that protect the Poe houses and Poe monuments and Poe this, that, and the other, whether it's Richmond and it's the Poe Museum down there and the Poe House in Baltimore and the Poe House in Philly, the Poe Cottage up in the Bronx, up in Fordham. Right. They all get along, but they're also incredibly territorial. Mm-hmm. And so I was getting into that because I was helping the Poe House in Baltimore with their events. I became their events producer, and there was a period of saving the Poe House. I was vice president of a group that reopened the Poe House and raised money for it, and they're doing very, very well. And the Poe House in Baltimore is doing gangbusters, and they're in good shape. They're closed for the winter season. They reopen in the spring and May. And so through all of that, I realized that there is an audience out there that why not launch Poe Forevermore, which as a magazine is basically a genre magazine of all of the types of stories that Poe loved, mystery stories and horror stories and humor. And so it's about that. And it's also, I got a submission the other day for a woman who wrote a piece about the women in Poe's life, which I think I'm going to run with it. So we have a new, and so we've refashioned. The magazine no longer exists. We are now publishing quarterly, and the next one is out in several weeks. We're now publishing basically book anthologies. So we're launching that with Poe Forevermore 1. And like I said, that will be out. A series of, it's a collection of short stories and essays. And we'll do that 4 times a year. And out of all of that grew, my love of audio plays and audio drama. And so Poe Forevermore Radio Theater. These are a series of adaptations of Poe stories, but we're also adapting other stuff and doing original dramas. Audio drama is just a lot of fun. So we've got some things coming up that are really straight up horror, and we've got some things that are funny. We're doing, we adapted a Poe story that we'll be doing with Eddie Deason, the comedian and actor, and it's called Never Bet the Devil Your Head, and I play the devil, and Eddie plays the guy who bets his head and unfortunately loses. And using Eddie and his persona, I mean, that should be very, very funny.
Yeah.
When we did The Black Cat, when I did that with Caroline, we adapted it and set it in swinging 60s London, which gave it a nice flavor. I mean, Poe didn't do that. So some of the adaptations, we're taking a lot of liberties with, and we're going off in directions. And then some, like what you're about to hear that I did with John Aston, and John, plays a bad guy, as he plays Montresor, who's bent on revenge, and I play kind of the drunken idiot Fortunato, who is the one that Montresor is seeking. We don't even know what the slight was. What is he seeking revenge about? But
we all have a person like that we want to kill. I've got a number of people like that I want to kill.
So the cast of Amontillado, we still need to, 20, what I don't know, what is it, 27 minutes, but it's pretty straight. Some of them are.
Hang on, we're losing you a little bit. You're waving in and out.
Oh, sorry about that. Can you hear me now? I don't know.
Yeah.
Newfangled cell phones, all the kids stuff. But anyway, the Valdemar, based on the case of Mr. Valdemar. That's again another pretty straightforward adaptation. So we're kind of running, and then there's a lot of original stuff. A lot of these are for free, and you can listen to them at PoeForevermore.com. Just click Poe Radio. And then some are on iTunes, and we try to keep them cheap. And then there are some books on tape. I've done Christmas Carol and a handful of other things. And, so, we have a bunch of new stuff coming out this year. So hopefully people will bookmark us and come back, or follow, you can follow Vampire Hunters, and you can follow Poe Forevermore on Facebook.
Yeah, I'm plugging it all the time. You can go to Amazon.com. Not a problem. I'm a fan. And the Cult of Nosferatu is on there. If you look up Mark Redfield, you're going to find them. And The Death of Poe is on Amazon.com too. And it's an independent film, but it really, it draws you in. It does. And I like independent films. I like it where you have to use your brain and actually, you're watching it, and it's not a lot of big explosions, and they're not spoon feeding you everything because they're afraid that you can't hold your attention. It actually holds your attention without working at it. Do you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and The Death of Poe is also the cheapest film that I produced, and
you wouldn't know it.
Least expensive. And one of the things as a designer that was important to me was the image of, it is a dream. It is very surreal. And I had this image that the whole thing is like Poe is trapped in this box. So, there is literally, if you watch the film, there's an image of him a couple of times being trapped in a coffin, but I wanted the whole film, all of the set designs, everything, to feel like he's trapped in that coffin or in a box,
or trapped in life.
Right now, that was what was behind the use of the framing and the black and white imagery, and color imagery, and that he's trapped in sort of this airless, deathless cube.
And even his writings show that. he was preoccupied with death. He was trapped in his own life to an extent.
But it's also a result of a man who, as a boy, fell in love with the poet Byron.
Yeah.
And the Gothic, basically the gruesome Gothic romance. I mean,
right.
The most beautiful thing in the world. The death of a beautiful woman, and I'm paraphrasing there. But these are all things that sparked him when he was a teenager, and he went to school as a boy in England, and then later as a teenager, of course, he was so. That's why his work is very Byron-esque in some ways, and that was in the air then, and he seized that because there were a lot of other graveyard poets throughout that period, and then later on in the Victorian period. But Poe seized that, and Poe's death, in some ways, catapulted him into a place where maybe, had he lived to a ripe old age, maybe he would not have been such an icon. Maybe he would not, because that created a lot of the mystery of him, and a lot of the intrigue of him is the mystery of his death, and that perpetuates a romantic poet thing.
Before I let you go, I got to interrupt. There's a movie, and I'm trying to Cold Harbor. What is that?
Cold Harbor. I'm very fond of Cold Harbor. Cold Harbor was written and directed by a friend of mine named Tom Brandow, and it's technically the first film that I produced. I was trying to get, coincidentally, Telltale Heart off the ground, and I had run into Tom. Tom and I went to college together, and years later, he was working at a television station, and I went in to audition for a commercial, and there was Tom, and so we get to talking, we go out, have a beer a couple of days later. What are you up to? Oh, I'm trying to make this damn movie called Telltale Heart. He said, well, I'm trying to make this film, the script that I wrote, based on my father's suicide from 10 years ago. And I said, well, wow, let me look at it. And he said, yeah, please read the script. And then he had tried and bumped along and couldn't get it off the ground. And I'll never forget this. Tom had quit his job at the television station, was going through some life, needed to really explore and confront what he was doing. So he got into his truck and he drove across country, took a tour. Then he cut up north and he went up and he was just inside the Arctic Circle, and he calls me from a payphone. And he says, Mark, I have a certain amount of money. I'm going to produce this damn film, and I want you to come on board and produce it with me and play the oldest brother. And I said to him, Tom, if we do that, if we do it with the money you have right now, we're not going to have money to finish it. It's going to take us a year or two to finish it because we'll be raising money. We'll be working really. He said, I said, what you do is you think about this on your drive home. It's going to take you a week to drive home. If when you show up and knock on my door and say hello and take me out for a beer and say, you want to make the film, I'll do it. And lo and behold, that's what we did. And I'm very fond of it. It's a nice little drama about coming to grips with saying goodbye, especially with something that is so difficult as someone who takes their own life when it's your own parent. And so we honed Tom's script. We tried to make it universal. It's not a biography. It is a dramatized, fictionalized. It's based on the.
It was inspired by it, but it is not his story.
It's not a documentary. It's not a biography of what happened to him.
Is it on DVD?
It is. If you Google Mark Redfield Cold Harbor, you will get the movie and not the Civil War battlefield. And it's on DVD and it's cheap and I think a lot of it's won some awards. It's done some festival stuff. It was shot in Rehoboth, Delaware.
Yeah, you know me. I start with when you were born and the doctor slapped your mother and all that stuff, and on your life, and I came upon that and I watched the trailer for it and I said, this is really a good, movie. I'd like to see it. There's two fields of thought. You either have to be totally batshit crazy or the bravest person in the world to kill yourself. We just you heard that woman that jumped off the bridge here in New Jersey last week. You know,
Right.
what brings someone to that point, you know? And I don't judge people. You know what? They did it. They had their reasons, and God bless them. It's over, and I hope they're at peace. But I really was, the trailer, I was very interested in it, and it drew me in right away, so I do want to see it.
Good. Thank you. Thank you.
You're a good actor, and you're good at what you do, and I think it's because you're passionate about what you do. And
Well, it's
that's
too late for me to do anything else now, so I'm going to keep muscling on.
well, you could do a lot of exercises and become a pole dancer or something.
I could.
I don't.
Well, yeah, there's always the challenge.
Yeah, there's always a challenge. Me, they haven't made a pole strong enough to hold my arse up, but you know, hey, anything is possible. Can you tell us a little bit, John Astin, he is also a great supporter of Poe. He likes him.
Oh, sure. I mean, do we have time?
Yeah, they told me I can run over, so yes, by all means. I love John Astin, another great actor.
I'll give it to you really, really short. John did a one-man show for a number of years that he toured with. It was co-written by a friend of mine named Paul Clemens, and it was called Midnight Dreary, I believe, and he played Poe.
Right.
And it was all Poe's writings, and very popular. And, of course, what your listeners, what everybody's going to really remember John Astin from is Gomez Adams from the Adams Family on television. And John is delightful. I've lost track of how old John is. He's in his 80s, and he's running the theater department at Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore. And so, you know, we've been friendly, and he's a Baltimore boy, but he's born in Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
And so Poe is sort of just kind of a happy accident. That, you know, it's not what drew us together. It's, you know, other paths. And I asked him to do this script that I had of the Cask of Amontillado that was written by Tony Sandeas. And we flipped a coin to who was going to play who, and he got Montresor, and I got Fortunato.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done 2 recordings. You'll find out that on my website that there's another Cask of Amontillado that I do with an actor called Chris Fingston, and we flipped the roles. I play the other one. So I've now played both of these guys, and they're a lot of fun. They both get to chew the scenery. And John is just a delight to work with. And so we did this radio play and recorded it in front of a live audience at Westminster Hall in Baltimore, with Poe buried, 30 feet right outside the door.
Mm-hmm.
And, so your listeners are going to listen to it for free. It's on iTunes.
Mm-hmm.
If you care to support us and download it, if you want to add it to your audio library, if you like audio fiction, audio dramatizations. And I'm looking forward to, we don't have anything planned right now, but I would love to work with John again on something.
I remember him from That Touch of Mink.
Sure.
He was big movies, and he was always that sleaze bag that you really loved, but boy, what a sleaze bag. And on Fenster and His Dickens, it was a short, early. But I remember him, and he always had that twinkle in his eye, and so you see, when I think of him, I don't remember. I know he was Gomez, but that's not where my first introductions to him were from. So
Sure.
It's kind of funny. Because he is such a good actor. He makes it look like he's not acting, and I guess that's the whole key to it. I would love to interview him.
He's very fun. He's very easy to work with, and very easy to direct as well. He's great.
Yeah, I would love to interview him. So if you can put a bug in his ear, I'll freaking drive down to Baltimore to interview him. I'll record it. If he doesn't want to do it by phone, but I would love to interview. I want to thank you.
we'll see
Go
what we
ahead.
can do. And I loved being on the show again. Always great to talk.
Thank you. You know why? I always tell you, you talk. I love it when you kept giving me yes, okay, and I'm thinking, oh boy, was today a bad day? But you never fail to talk and inform, and that's what I love in guests, because it's your time. Yeah, I want you to sell what you're doing. I want you to tell them all about you. And
it's called talk radio. So
yes,
there we are.
If you don't talk, it gets boring. I want to thank you again. Give them the links to your different things: the Poe Forevermore, the Vampire.
Well, the main two are Vampire Hunters Inc. and .com, and that will lead you to that. You can find that also on Facebook, and the same with PoeForevermore.com.
Yes.
Find us our website and our Facebook page, please.
Yes.
And we're on Twitter, the same. You can find us the same way.
Okay. I so suck at Twitter. I'm telling you, I need, when you've got a third grader showing you how to do stuff, it's terrible. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. But thank you. You're always incredibly informative and fun, and I enjoy talking to you about all of this. And I'm going to let you hang up, and I'm going to play some commercials, and then we're going to play Mark Redfield and John Astin in the cast of Monticello. I never can say that right.
The cast of Amontillado.
Amontillado.
It's a kind of sherry. It's wine.
Yeah.
Mark Redfield and John Astin in a barrel of wine.
Yes.
I hope you enjoy it.
Okay. Thank you so
Great
much.
to you. Good night.
Night. It's always wonderful to talk to him. He's such a pleasure and a treasure. I'm going to play, let's see, my promo. I'm going to play the Death of Poe trailer because I really like that. It's a little independent film by Marks, and I really like it. But I want to play those, and I'm going to play what I call welcome guests, and it's a little 1-minute clip of some guests that I've had on my show, and just to let you know that I have done stuff. But I'm going to play this too for his trailer for the Nosferatu thing for the vampire series. He plays I Love New York, and I'm just going to play a little clip of that, and then we're going to get right into the cask of Amontillado. And I know you guys are really going to enjoy it, so listen to it. John Astin is spectacular. He's John Astin is haunted by this friend or adversary, and we all have that friend that we really want to choke to death in private, and they're always smiling and ha ha, and you're like, put a sock in it. And that's what's happened here. And for some reason, John Astin's character has decided the only way he can find peace is to get rid of this guy, and he comes up with a plan. And you're going to love it. It's really great, and I hope you enjoy it.
You're planning a long vacation, or just a day or two. You're finally on vacation. You're wondering what to do. You want someplace that's different. You want someplace that's special. You can have a great vacation in New York. And you say, I love New York. You can climb a mountain. I love New York. And there's such great sailing.
I'm over the moon. My guest tonight is Bob Greenberg. This is a free record. Yes. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, himself, as we say in the Irish, Eddie Benitez. Welcome to the lair.
Thank you. Hello.
Hello, Sarah Karloff?
Yes, hi. How are you, Mo?
I'm fine. Welcome to the lair.
Terry Soto, Captain Celluloid from the movie TV conventions that he holds in New York. Welcome to my lair.
Hello, Mo. Thank you for having me back.
And our guest, Arch Hall Jr., aviator, musician, author, and everything else. I think you walk on water. Welcome to my lair.
Well, thank you, Mo. Thank you. Good to be on with you tonight.
Michael Patrick Boatman, welcome to Mo Banshee's lair.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
This is Mo inviting you to listen to my show, Mo Banshee's Lair. We feature a variety of topics, A to Z, and guests, all kinds of guests. Mo Banshee's Lair, Tuesday evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern on DreamStreamRadio.com. And I'll see you, my pretties.
In the midst of a great man. The Raven, the Telltale Heart.
That's you? You wrote The Raven?
Yes, that's me.
He was lying in the street, so I brought him here, called for your assistance.
Oh, God. What's happened to him?
From Westminster Hall in Baltimore, the final resting place of the master poet and storyteller Edgar Allan Poe comes Poe Forevermore Radio Theater. Poe Forevermore Radio Theater, bringing you thrilling tales of mystery and imagination, adaptations and original stories from the works of Poe and from classic and contemporary authors. And now, the producer and star of Poe Forevermore Radio Theater, your host, Mark Redfield.
I love radio theater. I love doing radio theater because I get to play parts that aren't necessarily my type, as they say in the business. I can be taller, I can be older, I can be younger, I can do all kinds of different things. And you, the listener, what's wonderful about radio theater is you get to really exercise your imaginations. You get to be the art director and create the sets. You get to be the costume designers and make the costumes. What is Fortunato, my character? I'm lucky enough in this play to play Fortunato. What is his motley? What does his fool's costume look like? Now, in my mind's eye, I picture Fortunato often. Well, I picture him just maybe he's a little heavier person. So, and he walks, he's often out of breath because it doesn't take but a few steps to. And he's generally a jolly fellow, even though he's a little heavier. And of course, in this story, he's just a little bit drunk. You see, that's how I picture Fortunato. But it's not his story. This story is Montresor's story, and so the Cask of Amontillado.
I remember the 1,000 injuries of Fortunato I had borne as best I could, but when he ventured upon insult, I vowed revenge. However, I gave no utterance of a threat. I would be avenged at length. A wrong is unredressed when retribution overtakes the redresser. Therefore, I must not only punish, but punish with impunity. Understand, neither by word or deed had I given Fortunato cause to doubt my goodwill. So long ago, it still rings in my ear, and he had the impudence to pretend an apology.
Oh, my dear friend, I'm glad you took no insult. Sorry. Another toast. Friendship.
For all eternity. I continued to smile in his face, and he did not perceive that my smile was now at the thought of his obliteration. Fortunato had a weak point. He prided himself in his connoisseurship in wine. I was skillful in the Italian vintages myself, and bought largely whenever I could. It was just about dusk when I encountered my friend during the supreme madness of the carnival season. I noticed him, though I acted as if I hadn't, forcing him to pursue me.
Montresor, it's me! Excuse me, pardon me, excuse me. Montresor! Hello, my dear friend. Hello.
Fortunato!
Yes, c'est moi.
I almost didn't recognize you, dressed as you are.
You mean as a fool?
Yes.
Well, in keeping with the spirit of the carnival, for tonight I am Fortune's fool.
Then, as Fortune's fool, you are well and most fortunately met. For I have what I hope to be a rare Epicurean treat.
Oh.
But I have my doubts.
Oh, well, you intrigue me, Montresor.
I will do more than that, my friend, for I have what passes for a cask of Amontillado. But, as I say, I have my doubts.
What? How? Amontillado? In attire? Impossible. And in the middle of carnival? A cask? Impossible. You say Amontillado?
I have my doubts. And I, silly enough to pay the full Amontillado price without consulting you first.
Well, you should have consulted me. Where did you get it?
I couldn't consult you. You were nowhere to be found. I was afraid of losing a bargain.
I understand. Full barrel Amontillado?
I have my doubts.
Amontillado.
And I must have satisfaction. I must know.
Amontillado.
Yes. In fact, it was just on my way to see Lucchese. If anyone can give me definitive assessment, he can.
Lucchese.
So perhaps
Lucchese, he couldn't tell an Amontillado from sherry.
Well, by some, his taste is regarded as equal to your own.
By who? By fools? Do not insult me, Montresor.
Oh, no insult intended.
Well, then, none taken. Oh, it is unfortunate.
What is?
Well, I'm on my way to meet my good wife, the Lady Fortunato. Were it not for this, I would return with you now to give you my assessment.
Oh, that is unfortunate. Well, then, I suppose I have no recourse but to keep my appointment with Lucchese. Good day, Fortunato!
Oh, wait. Let me think a moment.
Oh?
I will return with you now, Montresor, and test this Amontillado of yours.
Nothing would make me happier. Let us go! I felt intoxicated by my elation, but with the skill of an actor, outwardly showing nothing. I remember I said to him, I do not believe you have ever visited my wine cellar before.
A slight I shall make amends for today.
Yes, you shall.
Their legend precedes them.
I had him, but could not resist the temptation to play. I said, Now, they are extensive, but my friend, no. I have reconsidered. I will not impose upon your good nature.
Oh, this is not an imposition. I will not allow Lucchese...
You said something about having to pick up your fool's costume for the carnival.
What are you talking about? Are you drunk? I'm already dressed like a fool.
Of course you are. Perhaps memory invented that. Memory does. We only remember once. After that, all we remember is our memory of the memory of the memory. We continued our progress toward my palazzo. Then he suddenly sneezed. He sniffled and muttered.
Where is that handkerchief?
Oh, yes, my friend. Now I see you are coming down with a cold. My vaults are insufferably damp. They're encrusted with niter. It would be terrible for your cold.
Niter, but the cold is a mere nothing. Perhaps you don't wish to share, Montresor, or would prefer to share with Lucchese?
No assertion could be as distant from the truth as the one you have just made.
Truth, a difficult thing to unravel. Amontillado. Let us proceed with alacrity.
Then Fortunato mumbled under his breath in contempt.
Lucchese.
Then, as if newly invigorated, he set the pace and bellowed into the night air.
To your vaults! We shall see what we shall see.
And more. I quietly suffered. His already inebriated stumbles and the abuse of his mere presence, smiling broader and broader with each step. I knew my home would be empty. I had told the servants that I would not be back and given them explicit orders not to stir from the house. This was sufficient, I well knew, to ensure their immediate disappearance. One and all, the minute my back was turned.
You have a nice home, Montresor. Its modest nature does not detract from its charm.
This way.
I cannot wait.
Nor I. I took from their sconces 2 detachable lanterns and handed one to Fortunato.
Ah, very clever. Thank you, Montresor.
I bade Fortunato.
Oh,
be careful on the stairs.
Oh, they are an interesting feature.
Oh, my ancestors were eccentric, and our vaults are in their own way peculiar.
I place my trust in you.
And it is well placed. We descended a long and winding staircase that led to the catacombs and the wine cellars. His safety was my concern.
Whoa.
Careful there. A broken step.
I'm fine. Proceed.
We came at length to the foot of the descent. We stood a few moments together on the damp grounds of the catacombs, adjusting to our environment. Then we continued on. His gait was increasingly unsteady. His dress gave the impending horror, the piquancy of the absurd.
How much further?
The catacombs are extensive. This way.
What is that on the walls?
The niter. Oddly beautiful in its own way, though it does contribute to the health of the air.
No, indeed not.
Notice also the quite intricate webs of a multiplicity of spiders.
How much further?
Your cough. We must head back.
Nonsense. We are here. Lead the way.
Oh, if you insist. There is always Lucchese.
I insist. Onward.
Of course. Now, we must navigate through this narrow archway and a sharp turn here.
How did they get the cask down here?
That was the problem of the laborers who delivered the goods, not mine.
Indeed.
But I sleep well, knowing my stocks are secure. They are extensive, as you can now see. Fortunato's eyes widened as he beheld thousands of bottles of wine, neatly arrayed in racks. He licked his lips as if he were a low comic actor playing a scene instead of actually seeing it unfold in real life.
I am impressed, Montresor.
I knew you would be.
Where is the Amontillado?
What you see here is but a portion of my wine cellar.
Ah.
The rarities are located further on.
Indeed.
We must go back. Oh, no.
Enough. I have not traveled this far for no reason.
True, I had no intention of alarming you unnecessarily, but you should use proper caution. A sip of this Medoc will protect us from the damp.
Ah, yes, indeed. Why not? Are these, burial vaults?
Yes, the final resting place for all of my clan.
Oh.
I knocked off the neck of a bottle of wine, which I drew from a long row of dusty bottles and handed him the bottle for the first drink.
I drink to your health and to the buried dead of the Montresors who surround us.
And I to your long life.
Thank you, Montresor. These vaults are extensive.
The Montresors were a great and numerous family.
Delicious. I forget your family's coat of arms.
It is a human foot, bare, in a field of azure. The foot is crushing the head of a serpent, whose fangs are in the heel of the foot.
Well, that must be something to see.
The wine sparked in his eyes, and I watched intoxication slowly overtake him again. Bring it along with you. The Amontillado waits.
A cask. Unbelievable.
Watch your step.
What is this place?
A most unusual addition made by a particularly eccentric ancestor. We stood gazing at innumerable reflections of ourselves above, below, and in front of us. Each reflection featured an optical distortion unique unto itself. The effect was overwhelming.
An infinity of reflections.
Seemingly so. Each of the mirrors is positioned just so to reflect a single image into legion.
Its effect is most, dizzying and not a little sick-inducing. So many distortions of you and me and myself.
And despite distortions all equally true and all equally false...
If you say, well, let us make us through this as quickly as we may.
Agreed. It's not far now. At that moment, I felt pity for him. A strong emotion which was, before long, replaced with an even stronger taste of contempt, which made me smile. Once we proceeded. His eyes flashed with fierce light. He laughed and gesticulated his hand and arm in a way that escaped me.
You do not comprehend.
He gestured again. I stared at him. No, what is it?
Then you are not of the Brotherhood? I thought not.
How?
You are not of the Masons.
Oh, but I am.
You? Impossible. A Mason.
Yes, a Mason.
The sign, then, if you are in fact a Mason.
Here. I answered by producing a trowel from beneath the dark folds of my cloak.
You toy with me, Montresor. Very good. I can see you must be a mason then. Very good indeed. An excellent jest. Let us proceed now to the Amontillado.
Your wish. We journeyed for further into the bowels of the recesses, and then, at long last, we have arrived.
Finally, let's hope it was worth the trip.
I'm sure it will be.
What in God's name?
The walls were lined with human remains, piled to the vault overhead in the fashion of the great catacombs of Paris. The three sides of this interior crypt were still ornamented in this magnificent French manner. From the fourth, the bones had been thrown down and lay promiscuously upon the earth, forming at one point a mound of some considerable size.
These bones and the smell.
All the unsanctioned remains of enemies long past. Look, just ahead. Do you see where the bones cover that small opening?
The Amontillado?
I nodded and led him toward the dark chamber. We displaced the foul bones until the path was clear enough for us to proceed.
Quite an adventure I've gotten myself into this evening.
Help me move these aside. We displaced the foul bones until the path was clear enough for us to proceed. Now, don't be squeamish.
Squeamish?
Here! The cask is in this recess.
Here? Why, the lantern barely pierces the dark.
I had to keep it secure, given its value.
Oh, quite so. I don't understand why my buyers didn't hear of this.
Happenstance. After you? Roughly 15 feet. We were stopped by a granite wall. For a nearly comical moment, my friend stood, stupidly bewildered. In the next moment, I realized a deft maneuver I had practiced countless times for this occasion. Grabbing a chain and shackle, I fettered him to the granite. I forced both hands above his head. Completed their startled journey, arriving at their terminus in the shackle, which was immediately locked. Withdrawing the key, I stepped back from the recess.
Montresor!
Feel the damp? It is excessive. And I dimly perceive an astonishing number of webs for such a small enclosure. Once more, I implore you to return, please. No? Then I must leave you. But first...
Oh, Malta, Malta, I thought...
I render you my best.
Oh, all right, enough carnival frivolity. Don't leave. Montresor, please don't leave me. Surely this is a joke. Montresor!
Yes, my friend?
I knew it was a jest. You didn't leave.
No. First, masonry for the mason. Fortunato's intoxication had, of course, worn off. So sobering was his current moment. This I knew from the low, wailing moan that, as my building progressed and his terror grew, began to emanate from the depths of the recess. From the depth of his tomb. It was not a cry of a drunken man, but of one who now understood his nightmare was real. This was followed by what I regarded as a long and obstinate silence. I labored on. After I laid the fourth tier of stones, I heard the frenzied rattling of the chains, mingled with the pathetically comic jingle of the bell in his fool's cap. I decided to rest a moment and enjoy the symphony. I've always appreciated new music, and this was quite a passionate performance. When the music subsided, I resumed. Now,
when the wall was at breast level, I raised my lantern, casting a dull glow upon the mock figure within, and then... I was pushed violently back by the suddenness of this sound. I hesitated a moment. I even trembled. Then I decided to reply. It was nearly midnight. My labors were nearly complete. There was now but one stone remaining to be placed in the wall. I readied the heavy stone. But before I placed it, I heard...
An excellent jest. We shall have many laughs over it in the future. At your palazzo over wine.
Amontillado?
Yes, Amontillado. But now the hour is late. Come, we must be going to the palazzo. There, my wife and the others, our friends. Please. Why? My wife.
I will take care of the Lady Fortunato, as I have been. A lie, added merely to enhance the suffering of his final suffering.
Montresor, for the love of God.
Yes. Yes. For the love of God. My heart grew sick. I hastened to make an end to my labor. I forced the last stone into its position and plastered it up. Against the new masonry, I resurrected the bones as they were before. I left and did not return. For half a century, no mortal has disturbed the tomb. And then today, this evening, the anniversary of the deed, out of some strange species of curiosity, I have returned. Everything seemed as it was that night long ago. But as I grew closer, I saw the stones had been displaced. And then I heard.
You have been listening to Edgar Allan Poe's The Cask of Amontillado, a new adaptation written and directed by Tony Sendias, especially for Poe Forevermore Radio Theater. The Cask of Amontillado starred John Aston as Montresor and Mark Redfield as Fortunato, and was performed and recorded before a live audience at Westminster Hall, Baltimore. Our sound designer was David Crandall. Our audio engineer was Bill Dixon. For a full program schedule of plays and audiobooks, please visit us at poforevermore.com. We hope you join us again for another thrilling tale of mystery and imagination. For Poe Forevermore Radio Theater, this has been your announcer, Mary Ann Perry.
Hi, this is George Bettinger. Join me for the Mom and Pop Shop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday right here on Dream Stream Radio.
Help! I need somebody.
You gotta help me out, see? You just gotta help me out. My wife thinks she's a train.
Well, why don't you take it to the psychiatrist?
How do you expect me to get to work in the morning? Hey, come on, Bertha! All aboard!
Take the last train to Pottsville and I'll meet you at the station.
The Monkees? Wait a minute, that's been done already.
All right, come on, guys. He's not into it. He says it's been done already.
Hey, wait a second. Wait. Hold on there. Well, that's my chandelier. Oh, don't mess that up. You're ruining the whole shop.
Let me in. Woo!
Something's at the door.
Hello, I'm Mr. Red.
Stop horsing around. Yeah, but quit horsing around, will you? Oh, boy.
Can't see the dancing.
Let's dance. Double hano, hula, the Macarena. Bop to the beta.
Walk in the dog. Just a walking the dog.
What kind? You gonna be a good dog here? Oh, you gonna be good for a quarter? Why don't you be like me and be good for nothing?
Gold.
The Mom and Pop Shop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday right here on Dream Stream Radio.
And I want to again thank Mark Redfield for coming on, and you can check him out on poforevermore.com and his Nosferatu, Cult of the Vampire. You can get all the links on his Poe Forevermore. It was a wonderful show, and I hope you enjoyed the Cask of Amontillado. I want to remind everybody that next week we are going to have Monica Heinrich on. Her father was Paul Heinrich. You might remember him from Casablanca. A wonderful, wonderful actor. And she's working on a project to get his story out. And we're going to talk to her and see if we can help out. And with that, I wish you all a very good night. Thank you so much for listening. And God bless you and yours.
Somewhere over the rainbow, birds fly. Birds fly over the rainbow, while
Thank you for visiting me at my lair. And God bless you and yours.
ha 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 ha.